Trouble.
Do you like good music?
A man in search of his soul. Ian McShane stars in Soul Survivors, Sunday at 9:15 on BBC One.
BBC One rejoins Nick Ross and Jill Dando for a Crimewatch update.
Good evening. The first of the new season's Crimewatch appeals has led to the first of a new crop of possible solutions, at least new leads on many of our cases. Remarkably, the reconstruction which had least to go on has had perhaps the best response, with one name in particular that seems to mean something to the officers on the case. And on the robbery in Sulford, which had that astonishing £250,000 reward, a, quote, very, very good response. That's from the officer in charge. He's had a lot of calls that seem to mean a great deal to the detectives.
Yes, and that was one of the biggest thefts of cash in transit since the Great Train robbery back in 1963. If you can solve it, you could earn the biggest reward Crimewatch has ever been involved with.
There's men outside with masks! Help! Help! Somebody help!
£5 million in cash stolen from a Securicorps van. Andy, what's the response been so far?
Well, the response has been tremendous, both here and at Sulford. We've had over 200 calls in this short time, and particularly in relation to the vehicles and the ladders. But I must stress that we've not had that vital call yet about the white Ford Transit. We know that this van was used on the robbery. We know it was stolen 6 days before from London, and during that time it had a false plate of J923HVH placed on that vehicle. That is a legitimate vehicle in Sulford. I don't want to know about that, but I want to know who made that plate up and where was it during that 6-day period.
Have you had any new leads which may lead to new lines of inquiry for you?
Well, yes, there are, and what is encouraging is that we're receiving information back to the inquiry team that we didn't originally put out. And that is particularly encouraging to us.
But information that you knew already, which
That's
was
right.
significant.
That's correct, yes.
And of course a huge reward, £250,000, must be encouraging a lot of people to call.
It is, and it's perfect timing for us. The investigation is making a lot of progress. I'm sure that the information we'll get tonight will help us.
Thanks, Andy.
Well, we've had 27 calls about the rape of a schoolgirl in Gloucestershire. This is a video from a wine store in Cirencester, and detectives think it shows a man called Ahmed Khalid. He worked at a local restaurant but disappeared the next day. Well, amongst those calls we've had several that actually give us links that take us as far north as Scotland, and some of them may be connected. We've had a possible contact in Norfolk who recognises the voice that we played on the tape earlier. We've had a strong contact to follow up tomorrow, including a possible link from a lawyer who thinks he may be able to identify Mr. Khalid. If you think you know who the man is or where he is now, still please call us. Turning now to an attack on a school teacher in Wiltshire, detectives appealed for this man. Medium height, slim build, muscular, in his late 20s. Sometime after midnight on the night of Saturday the 9th of July, he walked up behind a woman on the A346 near Marlborough and knocked her unconscious. We've had 13 calls here in the studio, and again a lot for the officers to follow up. The detectives behind me are very optimistic that they'll have a result tomorrow.
One of tonight's reconstructions featured clues to the murder of Vicky Thompson. Mrs. Thompson was taking her collie dog Daisy for a walk near her home in Oxfordshire when someone injured her so badly that she later died. David Blair, this was one where I think we've had an unprecedented number of calls given how little there was to go on.
Yes, we've had something in the region of 130 calls, I estimate. We have, of course, haven't yet had the one call that could solve this case quickly, and of course that I hope we will still get.
There was a man seen, and this was part of the reconstruction, who was naked. He was the wrong side of the village for the attack. He might have been completely unconnected with it. Now, what have you got on that? I think about 50 people rang about that.
Oh, yes, I think more than that. But certainly we had a tremendous response on that. But I've got to say that we're not emphasising that as necessarily connected to Vicky's murder. We definitely want to interview whoever it is, and we would like them to come forward, whoever this person is. But we're not really at this stage considering it as a definite connection with Vicky's murder.
Somebody being in a field with no clothes on being a nature of something, nothing wrong with that.
No, no, and quite clearly there's nothing wrong with that, and we would certainly like to eliminate them both from the inquiry.
The dog lead, now this is an identical one. It's a Flexi 3 that is missing, and you're very concerned someone in the region of Ascot under Wychwood in Oxfordshire might have picked this up.
I hope that's the case. If not, maybe the offender still has it. So if anyone has picked a dog lead of this nature up in Ascot under Wychwood or nearby, would they please contact us?
Mr. Bear, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
One of our appeals was to trace a suspected child molester, Raymond Hodgson. This is a home movie taken a year or so ago. Now, he's wanted in connection with several separate paedophile attacks and has been known to travel widely. Well, we've had 70 calls so far, many of them giving information which is significant. The police will be following that up. If you have seen this man and haven't called, do call in now. There's been a slow response on the murder of Francis Martin. He was shot dead outside a pub in southeast London. We have had a couple of calls, one of them particularly significant, saying that he was stopped by a red Ford Orion car on the day of the shooting. Of course, you remember red Ford Orion was significant in this case. They were asking directions to the Frog and Nightgown pub, which is where the actual attack took place. So that person who rang in will hopefully be given more details and more descriptions of the passengers involved.
On the strange case of a hate campaign against a family in Warwick, the response can only be described as quality and not quantity. As a result of these images from a surveillance camera, 4 people have called in, all of them from an area in the Midlands which is of great interest to the officers as it fits in with previous information they've been investigating and could help provide a motive for a case which is obviously of great concern to the family involved. If you've got any more information, the phones are open till midnight. There's also great concern about this man. He pushed a schoolgirl out of a moving train. Here's another look at the video fit of the offender. We've had over 20 calls from viewers, including one from a cab driver who collected a fare from East Croydon station. And the fare spoke about a man on the train bothering passengers. He's of Irish or Northern origin, living in Brighton, and was dropped off at Crystal Palace Parade. If that was you, please ring us. And quite a number of callers have offered identities for the photo fit in and around the Croydon area, and a similar incident has been described by one caller on the Croydon train who was pestered by a man offering alcohol. So lots to go on there, Nick.
I have to say, though, that there have been few dramatic developments after our reconstruction about the murder of Robert Higgins near Kirkliston, outside Edinburgh. He simply didn't go home one weekend, but was seen not far away by several of his friends. The last time was by an old schoolmate in South Queensferry. He was with a couple that police needed to identify. But, Dougie Watson, you've actually had very little to go on this.
We've had 1 or 2 suggestions for the E-Fits in Morrison Gardens, and they're new names to us. I'm pleased about that.
That was the couple seen on the Sunday?
In Morrison Gardens on the Sunday morning. But there's been no duplicated suggestions, so at least we've got 1 or 2 things to follow up there.
But the biggest thing that you needed, I mean, there are people in the area, probably many, who must have known where he was on that Thursday, Friday and Saturday night.
Not a single call to tell us where Robert stayed over that weekend. I just find that so hard to believe. Even if the people that gave Robert the accommodation of that weekend don't want to come forward, for whatever reason, people who lived in that vicinity have got to know and seen Robert coming back and forth over that weekend. The first sightings on the Friday, the Saturday and the Sunday, and the last sighting on the Saturday are all in the Hopetoun Crossroads area, South Queensferry. He's got to have been in that area somewhere.
We'll give local numbers in a moment.
And finally, the pots. The pots in question were works of art stolen from a private museum in St Ives in Cornwall. They're items by the world-famous craftsman Bernard Leach, and we appealed for anyone who'd been offered works like these to come forward. Well, no one in that direction so far, but we have had calls from people asking what the emblems are, just to sort of point out the emblems. Well, they're very distinctive. BL, of course, Bernard Leach's initials, and the S across with a line across it is his symbol for St Ives. So if you have been offered pots like this or bought them lately, do get in touch. That's it for now. Do remember we're on Tuesdays, the first Tuesday of the month, so we'll be back on Tuesday, the 3rd of October.
Meanwhile, with our lines closing here in the studio in a couple of minutes' time, we'll give you local numbers just coming up. They're direct to police incident rooms. We also have an arrangement now with the National Crime Stoppers line. Detectives there have been briefed on all our Crimewatch cases. You can reach them on 0800 555 111. That's 0800 555 111, open now and 24 hours a day. As Jill said, do join us on the first Tuesday. Remember, it's Tuesday now in October, and don't have nightmares. Do sleep well. Good night.
everything.
Go on, give it a whirl. Death Becomes Her. Friday, 9:30, BBC One.
Come on, what do you say?
A grade A pupil seemingly with the world at his feet takes his own life, but for what reason? Keanu Reeves stars in BBC One's late film, Permanent Record.